This undrafted Denver Broncos player could be in line for a breakout season. So, we're all talking about Jaleel McLaughlin here in Denver as the next big undrafted free agent star for the Denver Broncos. And rightfully so. Jaleel McLaughlin has been amazing. We all know that I'm one of the founding members of the Jaleel McLaughlin fan club. But there's another player that has not been getting a whole lot of love that could be a massive impact player for the Denver Broncos as an undrafted free agent. Although technically he was part of last year's UDFA class, I still feel like this player should be worth mentioning because he has been phenomenal, and that is Elijah Garcia. Garcia was initially signed by the Broncos off the LA Rams practice squad. He initially signed with the Rams as an undrafted free agent last season coming out of Rice University. He played in 2 games for the Broncos last season, our final 2 games of the year, and he recorded his first NFL tackle in our season finale against the Los Angeles Chargers. Well, let me tell you what, man. Elijah Garcia has been one of those players that has really stood out both in training camp as well as in the preseason. He's made an impact both as a pass rusher and as a run stuffer. He mostly plays as a 3 technique on the defensive line, which is where he lines up on the outside shoulder of the guard. He was able to notch 2 sacks in our first preseason game against the Arizona Cardinals. Both of them came off stunts, which is where two defensive linemen basically cross paths with each other on their rush. And one of them is like the penetrator, basically, who's responsible for taking out 2 offensive linemen, and then the looper, who was Elijah Garcia in both of those cases, would come back around with hopefully a wide open gap, which he had in those 2 cases, and he would make a sack. He also was able to make an impact on an interception off of a tipped ball from Matt Henningsen in the San Francisco game. But in training camp, he's stuffed runs, he's been in the backfield on passing downs. Elijah Garcia has popped up on my notes many times throughout training camp. I'm really excited to see him potentially make an impact on this Denver Broncos team. And considering where we are right now with depth on the interior defensive line, I strongly feel like Elijah Garcia is going to make this team. So right now, if we take a look at our depth chart here for the Denver Broncos on the interior defensive line, Elijah Garcia is currently listed as one of our 3rd string defensive ends. But at this point in time, it feels like he has surpassed Jordan Jackson, and those two should switch their roles in the next rendition of this depth chart. That's how it's played out for the Denver Broncos in our first 2 preseason games, especially in that San Francisco game. So if that's the case, I strongly believe that Elijah Garcia will be in position to make the active roster. I could see the Denver Broncos carrying 6 interior defensive linemen. So it would be Zach Allen, Elijah Garcia, DJ Jones, Tyler Lancaster, Jonathan Harris, and Matt Henningsen. And actually, this depth chart's a little bit outdated because Forrest Merrill isn't even on the team anymore. And this is Gauge of the Future here. After recording this, I realized that I completely neglected to mention Mike Purcell, who's currently sitting on the NFI list. I feel like he's probably going to remain on that list for the start of the regular season. I feel like he may have to miss the first few weeks of the regular season. It's trending that way. He still seems like he's a ways away from returning to practice. Same goes for Baron Browning, but obviously we're discussing interior defensive linemen here, but that's a bit of a news update on both of those players. It seems like we may still be a ways away from seeing both of those players. So Mike Purcell in this scenario would start the year on the non-football injury list. He could be activated off that list at any time as soon as he's healthy. So if that happens, I feel like he would probably be in competition with Tyler Lancaster for that second nose tackle spot behind DJ Jones. And right now, Tyler Lancaster has played really well. He's coming out of retirement this year, and he's looked good for the Denver Broncos. So unfortunately, Mike Purcell just might be the odd man out in this scenario, but I feel like the most likely scenario for him is that he's going to start the year on the non-football injury list. I feel like the top 2 practice squad candidates would be Jordan Jackson and PJ Mustipher. So that's how I feel like things would shake out for the Denver Broncos on the interior defensive line, and in that scenario, scenario, Elijah Garcia makes the team. And I really feel like Elijah Garcia is one of those guys that is taking his opportunity in training camp, and he's just seized it and he's just run away with it, man. Vance Joseph talked about him in one of his press conferences, saying that he's playing with his hair on fire and that Vance Joseph is really impressed with his work ethic. Those are the kind of guys that Sean Payton is looking for on this Denver Broncos team as he really tries to rebuild the overall culture and dynamic of this locker room. And if that's the case, Sean Payton's a strong believer in he doesn't care how you get here, he cares about what you do when you get here. And Elijah Garcia is a perfect example of that. And I hope that the Denver Broncos recognize that and he does indeed get a spot on the 53-man roster. All right, Broncos country, how do you guys feel about Elijah Garcia? Do you feel that he is deserving of a 53-man roster spot? Drop those comments down below, guys. I would love to hear your thoughts as always. Be sure to leave a like on this video as well as subscribe and ring the bell so these videos appear in your notification feed. I would really appreciate it, guys. Those are two free and easy ways to show your support. It helps tell YouTube's algorithm to push us out and helps us get seen by more and more members of Broncos country just like you and me. And until next time, guys, this has been another episode of Denver Broncos Syndicate. I am your host, Gage Madrid, saying peace out.